Welcome, everybody. This is Dr. Doug Pernikoff and my lovely returning co-host, Cindy Vickers, and we are here at Dr. Doug's All Things Animal radio show. Today, we have a very interesting different kind of critter discussion. We have a very, very special friend and guest, and his name is Doug Gilberg. He is a longtime friend of mine. Actually, I bought my first snake from you when I was like 15, right?
That's right.
And then I also beat him in wrestling in high school, junior high school or high school?
Just barely beat me in wrestling.
Oh, okay. But you were much bigger.
It was the last minute.
Oh, okay. But I did win, and that's what's important. So.
I'd love to see a picture of this, by the way.
And that's when he weighed 165 pounds. Too.
Yeah, just last week.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, Doug is a very interesting person, has many, many skill sets, but recently helped us develop, through his own love and passion and long history in ceramics, develop the Wildwood Green Arts, which is a non-for-profit organization that teaches all about different art forms. We began with ceramics because it was his primary love, but we're moving and expanding that opportunity. And Doug, I'm going to let you introduce the theme of it, but his intent was to use the beautiful space out at their family farm where we've developed into a true teaching facility with all kinds of classes and wheels going on. He's going to give you the website. Why don't you do that and just tell us how you brought the whole idea together for us?
Well, I've been a potter since high school, and it's been a theme that never stopped. And I always found peace and comfort and goodwill in clay, and liked working with other potters, and had been involved in a clay community at Ladue High School for almost 15 years. And that's what I was trying to replicate. The camaraderie, the ability to make art, the ability to focus and bring that on. So I was working at a corporate job for Abengoa Bioenergy. They were experiencing some difficulties, and I was having difficulties sitting at my cubicle. So I bit the bullet and started the Wildwood Green Arts, which is, like you said, a 501c3 in the state of Missouri, and with the focus of being a ceramic studio. And we are most comfortable where art intersects the natural world. So my background is being a grower and a nurseryman for 28 years. I'm educated as an entomologist. I'd like to think I have a fairly reasonable understanding of ecology and the interaction of insects and animals in the natural world. And I actually try to bring that to being in the works of art that I make.
I think that's a wonderful introduction, and
wow,
it's
that
so
was
interesting.
Really well said.
I know. Have you met Cindy Vickers?
No, but
just 5 minutes ago. Where are we going to go with this, Douglas?
I'm not going anywhere with it. I better stop right there. Yeah, I've just always been stimulated by Doug's abilities and interest, and we share a lot of common interests in reptiles and stuff. And
we've been on many a snake hunting trip. We've been up to our necks in deep, muddy, stinky water hunting frogs and snakes and
women.
Not so much.
Not so much.
Fewer of them in the stinky water, I think.
That's where you find some of the nicest girls.
Okay, well, I wouldn't know about that, but we can talk about that for just a minute or two.
Yeah, I think the Wildwood Green Arts, and I'm actually involved as a board member, and I have artistic interest trying to develop them more, but I can't do the wheel. To me, that's a very structured kind of potter role, and I don't feel like I have the strength for it either. But
I'm sure you have the strength for it. You have to have the will to get over. So every 7 weeks at Wildwood Green Arts, we start another class, and it's interesting to watch the learning curve of someone who's never done it. And it's like life. Sometimes people just get it and it clicks, and it's boom, they got it. Other people, they just have to work so hard, and the skills that it takes to bring a bead of clay up a pot just eludes them. So a woman today in class, she had the breakthrough. And I can tell when I'm watching them, they're muddling, they're fuddling, and then all of a sudden there's like an inner tube that goes up the wall of clay, and they see it all come together. But it comes after hours of, most people, hours of fighting it. You could learn.
I guess.
So I think that there's a lot of things that happen like this, and I actually, I'm going to try to say something that's remotely scientific, but I honestly don't have.
If you mess up, we will certainly make fun of you.
But I read something. I'm going to try to say this, where there's when your muscles in particular are trying to learn something, that there's a chain that has to be developed from the point that your brain says, this is what we want to do. Here's the example. There was a weight, there was a string tied to a small weight, and then at the other end of the string, it was tied. The string was tied to somebody's finger, and the weight's like going across your desk and hanging off the end. And so you were trying to get your finger to lift that weight. Well, you could try, nothing happened. You try, nothing happened, and so it's very frustrating when you are making this effort to try and nothing happens. But what you don't know is that even though it looks like nothing's happening in your brain or in your body, that chain of learning is happening. So it seems like one day you can just do it.
Is that what you call muscle memory that I always hear
I
about?
think so.
Well, yeah, but muscle memory, I think, is more when you have done something and then your body just knows to do it. You don't clearly tell your brain to do it.
Well,
your body just does it.
That story is very interesting about the finger tying to the string and the stone, because I saw the exact same, well, not exactly the same thing on Old School when the fraternity boys were being introduced. I don't know if you saw that, but
I don't remember.
It wasn't tied to a finger, I know that, but it was a stone. Anyway, it's a very funny show.
Okay, but so if that is true, that it happens something like that, that's why you can. You just can't give up, because maybe you're
learning ceramics is a lot like learning to play guitar. So you're learning a new song. You've got to learn your chords. You start plucking at it. Boom, boom. You hit them very slowly. You get it faster, and you get better and better. And then you can play a real song. And that's kind of how ceramics is. And the other rule with the muscle memory is it takes 10,000 hours for someone to really perfect a skill or a task.
That was Gladwell's story.
Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell.
10,000 hours to perfect a skill. Of course, that's
minimally.
What do you mean by skill? Define skill.
Whatever it is. If you want to learn how to play the piano, you want to do anything. It's in which book is that in? I forgot.
I don't know. But I can tell you, I've been potting since high school, so over 40 years, and I've potted a lot. And I tell my students this all the time. I've potted for 40 years. I'm still not good at it. But what makes me excited is that I'm always better than I was yesterday.
This is sort of like golf, except that you're not always better than you were yesterday.
And I always pick out golf because my golf friends are always just as frustrated, but love what they do as well.
So let's tie this to the theme of our show, which is all things animals. Do you consciously feel different or inspired when you're working like out in nature, and you are aware of you hear crickets, or that there's frogs in the pond, or now we're going to get very poetic. But
let me just state, as a user of the space, he lives there in the grounds, but it's such a tranquil place. We're one of the highest points in all of Wildwood, I think, and the skies are beautiful, and a lot of the time is either daytime, but it can also be nighttime classes. And you just get there, and you just know it's all centered in this building, surrounded by this beautiful space.
And my water garden's outside, so when you walk in, my background's in aquatic gardening, and
you have a lot of backgrounds, Doug.
Well, I was a nurseryman for 28 years and a retail wholesale. I used to supply PetSmart and Petco with all their aquatic plants for their aquariums. I supplied Lowe's with their aquarium or with their pond plants. So when you walk in, there's two big cattle troughs full of aquatic plants and fish, and you'll notice, or maybe you don't notice, because the water quality is perfect. It's clear. There's no algae growth. It's loaded with fish and frogs at night that sing, but it's all part of a natural cycle. The water is kept clean by the plants that are living in it. They're cycling the nitrogen and the nutrients. They're producing oxygen for the fish. The fish are eating insects and mosquito larvae and excreting and creating the nitrogen for the plants. And it's just a closed system. And that was one of my things that really excited me about aquatic gardening, not the inclusion of expensive filters that you're building a system that if the electricity goes out, the whole thing crashes, but a system like the Earth used to be that perpetuates itself.
That's really beautiful, because I always call Doug from little on my Yule Gibbons of the animal and plant world, because he can go out in the woods and he knows the balance, he knows the components, and it's a wonderful place to be.
My late wife and I, when we were hiking, we would, Doug and I can tell you, we'd like to turn over stones and put them back the way we found them, but sometimes we'd run into ant colonies, and we would like to eat ant pupae. You know,
Ooh, you like to eat it?
Yeah.
they're really buttery and sweet. They're
Well, I
really
mean-
delicious.
Yeah, I was just telling Doug about a famous biologist, E.O. Wilson, who is at Harvard. He's the one of the professors there, but one of the most famous field biologists, developed all kinds of neat stuff. But he studied he developed and learned, identified over 800 species of ants around the world, and he says there's probably 10,000. You know, and each one has its own natural history, which means it has its own form and function. How does it survive in the way it lives, where it is?
Probably has its own language, its own way of communicating with its community.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back and clarify for a minute. The pupae is that kind of wormy stage, right?
No, they kind
That's
of
the egg.
Larval stage.
It's
Well,
egg-
they're like worms, though, right?
no.
They
It's
look like worms.
it's
No, worms, I mean, they're
the
more...
pu- we
There's
ate-
little white.
Yeah, the larvae do move,
Yeah.
but we ate the pupae.
Okay,
so
the
it's egg, larva, pupae, adult.
So it's kind of it's before it comes out.
It doesn't move anymore when it's a pupae.
Okay, that's
So it
kind of
doesn't
what I
move
really
in your
wanted to know.
mouth. Yeah,
because it looks like little maggots, what they look
Right,
like.
no, we
yeah.
don't, we don't eat
And,
that.
and when they
So-
stop moving, so how do you identify that? If you turned over a stone, how would you know what's
they
what?
look like little cocoons.
Yeah.
Oh.
But
That's
they're
kinda what
white,
it
they're
is.
white and glossy.
Yeah.
And so when did it happen then one day you went, I'm just going to stick my finger in this white glossy stuff and have
Probably
a taste.
saw Bear Grylls do it, and it looked really delicious. And
Andrew, who's Bear Grylls? Is this an inside
Bear
joke? or-
Grylls, no, he's the guy that has that outdoor adventure show where they drop him in the woods.
Oh,
and he has
right,
to,
right.
He has to survive.
Yeah, one time
Right, I
I
have
saw
seen
him.
him, actually.
Yeah, one time I saw him standing like he was on there, and accidentally the camera went up, and there was a highway right behind him, and he looked like he was in the middle of nowhere.
Oh.
But no, so that really is where it comes down to. And the interesting thing I wanted to say is that the class is made up of lots of different types of people from different walks of life, young and old, and it's a community energy. That's what we're trying to do, is create a real community. It's not just Wildwood. We want to bring people from all over. If there are special programs like city programs, we're looking at trying to bring kids that wouldn't have an opportunity to experience this into this fold and give them opportunities. And by the way, Cindy used to work with the city and worked with young kids that were pre-adult, like 17 or younger, 16 or younger.
Yeah, they had to be under 18.
And they were city kids that really had problems and didn't get into, they got into trouble more than anything else. 'cause
Well, they were
had-
incarcerated in a maximum security facility.
No, but I mean, what I was getting at before they get incarcerated, they're there because they didn't have other outlets that a lot of other communities do. So the whole idea was to get them training with dogs, and the personalities changed, the sense of responsibility and love for what they were doing made it terribly good.
And the feeling like you can do something. I think there's such a great fear to try something that you don't know for all people, and maybe times 5 for these kids. But when they realized that,
I think
they
times
were
6.
going to be able to, 6, going to be able to learn it because of the way we taught them and then be successful, that was such a huge deal to be able to be successful at something. And you know, and there were, I mean, I still have a framed picture of one of the kids was just this gorgeous artist, and I've seen that more than once. I mean, you see this, you know, this
Something comes
talent.
out that you
well,
never
you know,
saw.
the theater programs that they have, and just all kinds of things. It's just there, and no one's saying, "Here, let's give this a little opportunity and let's try to grow this." I want to do this myself. I mean, I really, truly.
You mean what we're doing?
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
you would love to bring that old guy out and we can get him into a class.
Doug, by the way, for those who don't know, is a really wonderful artist, a sculptor. Very cool.
You are. I really
That,
think
no,
Yes.
Pernikoff.
Oh, me?
You. And you should
Well, Doug
see-
has encouraged me because
I have.
I started going there when my brother passed away unexpectedly. It just kind of disrupted me. And Doug was started his own just little site there. It wasn't a formal program. It was just for himself. And he invited me out. And we would spend the evenings drinking wine and doing clay.
You did not drink wine.
I
Yes,
drank
he
a
did.
little bit. Yes,
He
I
did?
Yeah.
You did.
I'm not a big wine person, but in that setting, it was
I
nice.
really like it then.
Yeah.
That even made it better.
Yeah, and we listened to good music, 70s rock and stuff, and
Right.
just had fun.
And he started exploring caricatures by Dr. Doug. And now he's, you know, we actually have fairly similar themes
Yeah, we do. We
in
build
what
our.
we're working on now.
Yeah, yeah.
Really natural history inspired.
Yeah,
Like what?
because now we're doing what do you call them? Faux earth.
Well, he did a beautiful log. It's kind of like a rotten log, and on it was a whole fanciful creation of
Critters and
some real critters, some make-believe critters, snakes.
I call it the tree of life.
Right, and little ponds of primordial ooze and.
Yeah. Oh, no, that was stuff I should have wiped away. Well, this is a great start. We're going to break for just a moment. And again, this is Cindy Vickers and Dr. Doug Pernikoff of Dr. Doug's All Things Animal. And our special guest and wonderful friend is Doug Gilberg. We'll be right back and continue our discussion. Thanks for listening.
Sugar, oh, honey, honey.
Well, we're back again, folks. Dr. Doug Pernikoff, Cindy Vickers, and our great friend and guest, Doug Gilberg from the Wildwood Green Arts. And again, as I think Cindy said it best when we were off the air, that Doug is very colorful, and because of his great experiences and broad skill sets, he's fun to talk to and fun to explore with.
Oh, extremely. And I think somewhere we've lost control. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore, what day it is.
Anyway, well, we're going to get back in sync here. So, again, Doug's background is so varied, but it started out as an entomologist. And, of course, before that, I knew
Which
Doug
is?
a studier of insect species.
Thank you.
Okay. And, of course, before that, even as a young child, he was importing, way back when the rules were much lighter, importing reptiles from all around the world. That's where I got to know him. So he was an entrepreneur from way, way back, and his family really supported him in doing these things. So then as he grew up and became the horticulturalist and all this, developed a great facility that was a lot of fun for many, many years, the Gilberg Perennial Farms. And many people that have shopped for plants out west in particular have known his name. And actually, you were the first person to develop the perennial plant business in a big way.
In a big way, in a different way that nobody else has really
introduced yet.
Kind of done. I mean,
Yeah.
people have done parts of it, but we were the first people. We're still the only people in St. Louis to have a nursery that was organized in alphabetical order.
Yes.
By Latin name.
Yeah. I mean, and
We
they
grew
would spew off these names.
We grew 1,600 varieties of plants, and as the owner, if there wasn't order, we couldn't find things either.
Yeah.
We really were instrumental in making the aquatic plant business what it was. I was the person who came up with the concept for the St. Louis Water Gardening Society.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
is still ongoing. I haven't had anything to do with it from the beginning, but it was my business that came up with the idea, put it in front of the public. People came together, and we handed it over to them.
So I want to know, if I were to walk into your house, would things be very orderly? Like if some people
Hell
come
no.
up and kick, no?
Can he say that on the radio?
Order, not really.
But very interesting, because you're going to see butterflies mounted here and
Turtle shells,
shells, and it just feels very natural. And the home that he lives in is partly an original log cabin, and part of it's been redone. So it's kind of it's a very fun place to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I just
My
love
house
it.
was built in 1848 by German immigrants. It's actually a classic dog trot cabin where I actually have 2 exterior walls on the inside of my house. So the immigrants had built one cabin, maybe added a second floor, then they built the next one, they built the second floor, and there was about a 15-foot span in between, and then they build a roof over it, and they make it a house.
Oh, and they probably figured, well, we have one wall, let's give us another wall.
Yes, now we're on the one roof.
So let's talk about bees, because I know that's a new part of your world, and of course, being an entomologist, this is something you love, but now you have a functional insect relationship. Can you talk a little about bees?
Well, I've been an entomologist, for 40 years, and and at the farm we always had bees, but we had a beekeeper take care of our bees. So my partner, significant other, is my bee mentor, and
So great.
she coached me through the whole process. So
There's been a
But
lot
you're-
of
but you're a
girlfriend
quick
jokes.
learn.
A lot of girlfriend jokes, but going
know.
on up in here.
I love
yeah,
it. No, I love
we could
it.
have
She's
boyfriend.
so great, and she's a
We
big
can have
hippie. She's
boyfriend
such a
jokes.
good artist. We love her.
So
She's so special.
We're going to have a honey tasting.
we're going to have a honey tasting.
And we're going to have
you-
to describe it.
Yeah, tell the story
All
of
right,
the two
so-
different types
No,
of
wait a
honey.
minute. Can you just, for our listeners, for those who aren't aware, just the Reader's Digest version of why bees are so critically important to us?
Well, a little background on bees. So the honeybee, as we know it, is not native to the U.S. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so it's an imported species. It came from Europe.
Oh, well, then, heck.
So, but it's easily manipulated. It's easily, and as a beekeeper, I'm not saving the world. I'm farming. I'm farming honey. They do pollinate crops, and they do give that benefit.
Which is very critical.
Well, it is critical, but it also forces or creates a situation where people then are overlooking the importance of our native pollinators. There are dozens of native bees and wasps that do just as important of a job of pollinating plants as the honeybee does, and they're under tremendous environmental pressure from pesticides, lack of habitat, and people just killing them, not wanting them in their presence. So honeybees are important. We have created a situation where they're under stress because we're pushing them so hard as farmers. We're picking them up, we're moving their hives across the country, we're moving them into areas that are sprayed by pesticides. There's new pesticides being developed all the time.
Aren't there also fungi and stuff that are attacking them now?
There are new, it used to be, it was
Pests.
pretty easy to keep bees, but we've introduced new fungal diseases, there's a new mite, there's hive beetles, there's all these things that create pressure on them. And then on top of that, we're trying to take their honey away when we shouldn't and manipulating them when we shouldn't. So we've tried to give the bees what they want and not take more than our share.
Okay, I want to ask a question about what you just said. Trying to take their honey away when we shouldn't. So is there like an optimal time, or it's just that we're taking too much honey? Or
We don't leave them anything to eat over the winter a lot of
Okay.
times. So we harvested our honey about 7 weeks ago. If the conditions are right, there could be another fall flow of honey. Well, but if you would harvest all of that, what are they going to eat over the winter?
I never actually realized
We
the
don't
bees
think about
ate the
that.
honey.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And bees don't really go dormant over the winter. They maintain their colony and have to maintain temperature, so it takes BTUs. It takes sugar input for them to be able to
Produce energy.
to
Yeah.
do their operations and to keep the queen alive. And
That's an interesting perspective. So did you leave, when you harvested these batches of honey, did you leave a percentage in the hive?
I do. I have when you look at a hive, the big boxes on the bottom are the brood boxes where the queen lays her eggs and the workers and the drones take care of them. And then on top of that, there's a smaller box which is called a super, which is really just to hold honey. And the queen is excluded from there so that you don't get
A sticky queen.
you don't want
That's one benefit.
You don't want babies in the middle of your honey.
I see.
When you uncap that honeycomb, you want to
Oh.
just have honey and not a bunch of dead, rotten bees.
Well, let me ask
Okay,
you
so
something. In the wild,
That's my question.
we
Okay,
want to
very
say it
good.
together?
No, we could.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be
In
sweet.
the wild, you wonder, I thought that structure, that kind of divisional structure, was natural, but you're saying we created that.
We created
How does
that.
a natural honey hive look like? I mean,
Bees like to be, this was described to me by the beekeeper that we got our starter bees from this year. They like to be in compressed, tight areas. You'll find them in a trunk of a tree. Maybe you'll find them built out between the studs of a wall, usually in these tight things. So they're slowly expanding and maintaining and laying eggs as they go and building brood and growing the size of their colony.
but in the wild, how would they separate the sugar from?
There isn't an exclusion. There'll be honey right there to feed the babies.
Sounds
And
messy.
so if you took it, you might just get honey and dead babies.
Debbie babies.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
No,
yeah.
we just want honey. And,
So if today you have two types of honey here.
I
One
do.
is dark, kind of an amber color, dark amber and one is kind of a light.
Golden.
So
Golden.
those boxes that I was telling you about,
We're going to taste it. You guys can't taste it, but we're going to taste it.
Right.
so the boxes are called supers. So this first one we're going to taste came from the first super on the hive, which meant that this honey came from the most early pollen and nectar that was collected.
We're all dipping our spoons. Mine's dripping. Dipping. Oh shoot! Mine's all over already.
You have a napkin? You do.
I do.
No hygiene.
I have to lick it off my hand. That's just a mess. Okay, are we tasting now? This is a taste test
Yes.
of the golden super. What super honey?
It's really
Mild. Is that a good
It is.
word?
It is really mild, but really
Mild.
but floral.
Real.
But floral at the same time.
It's like a wine tasting.
There's an aftertaste that's very good.
So
What, like honey?
before. But you know what? So before I kept bees, it just tasted like honey. Now it tastes like bees.
You can differentiate it.
Oh,
Well, no, I know that it came from, the bees took that pollen into their body and they put it back into the hive.
How do you know they didn't spit into your honey because they're upset with you for
No,
taking
we
it?
know they spat. They did spit into our honey. We know that.
okay. So the first golden one does that have a name?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
You need to name it.
Actually, it comes from the linden trees in my front yard.
How does it come from the linden trees? That's what I don't get. I mean,
Is
that
it a
was the
flowering tree?
flower that they got the nectar from the linden
Yeah,
tree.
correct.
Oh, okay.
So
And
now
you
this-
know that because of the timing?
the timing, yeah.
Okay. And now this dark one is,
Ooh.
this one's a conglomerate of multiple.
It feels different too, doesn't it? It's thicker. It's more
right.
caramely.
Oh, that's amazing.
Definitely denser.
But it's
sorry.
It's so
it's
good.
it's caramely. That's what it is. Yeah.
This one's caramely, and the first one is kind of buttery.
And just lighter, like you said. It's got a.
We'll save some for you too, but boy, there's a young
Wow,
gentleman
if you're
looking
into
in the
honey,
window.
you might want to check this out. How can somebody buy your honey?
No, my honey is, I do my honey simply for favors.
We're going to just hold off while we're savoring this wonderful, wonderful product.
Wow.
We're going to come back in just a minute and continue this wonderful discussion. Again, it's Dr. Doug and Cindy Vickers, along with our wonderful guest, Douglas Gilberg of the Wildwood Green Arts. We'll be back with Dr. Doug's All Thing Animal Radio Show in just a second. Of course, he's closing up the honey when I was going to steal some more. See you later.
Was a bug, little bug, hardly there.
It's Dr. Doug and Cindy, along with Doug Gilberg from the Wildwood Green Arts, and we're back here talking about honey right now. And we just got to sample to, and I'm a diabetic, so my surge, if I start to talk really fast, you'll understand there's a problem. But bottom line is, you can distinguish. You can distinguish the two. Honey is very characteristically different. One is milder, and then Doug, you were explaining why are they different seasonally? Because this has more moisture.
The light honey probably came from the flowers of the linden tree, and if you've ever smelt the linden, it's just really light, almost like honeysuckle, really sweet and
Oh, by the way, does honeysuckle produce honey?
nectar. The nectar, sure,
Well, that's also an early.
it could.
Flowering.
But I have 2 giant linden trees, and the bees were just all over them. And
How about dogwood?
I don't think so.
No, wait a
That's
minute.
too early.
Wait a minute. So, do you let the bees out, and then you somehow get them back in the hive?
It's kind of like calling the chickens back in.
Yeah.
No.
No.
There is an opening that is always, that is typically open to the hive, and the bees come and go as they want.
Oh,
And the bees
so it's not
typically
bee jail.
no
Come
bees
and go. Okay.
bees typically keep banker's hours. So they're by 9 o'clock they're out and about, they're collecting and foraging, and so a lot of people also, when it comes to beehives, people are cautious about them.
We're
My
gonna have to
hive,
cut this whole show if you two don't calm down. For those of you listening,
It's the
these
honey.
two have been friends for too long, and they are out of control. But you can't see it.
so my beehive is about 30 feet from my front door.
Braggart.
So, But the thing is, I get to see what they're doing every time I come in and out the front yard, and I like that. So this is a first-year beekeeper. I've learned a lot just by watching them. I have a chair that's about 5 feet away from the hive, and I sit there and I watch their behavior and watch them do their dances, and
It's part of his therapy, actually.
You must be calm. Are you a very calm person?
I am a calm person.
Very much so.
So one time I was at Marcy's house, and I had gone. She also has,
Marcy's the girlfriend.
She's so special.
Go ahead.
So anyway, she also has a chair that's close to her beehive. So we went, and I was sitting
That's
there.
too much information.
I went to observe her bees because I'm a curious individual, and I was eating a banana. And the next thing I know, this bee.
Code words.
So this bee takes a beeline and
Bee
stings.
takes a beeline.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
And it stung you?
So the bee takes a beeline, stings me right in on my eyebrow, and I drop the banana and I lose my glasses and I run back in the house because I know there's other bees after me. And it turns out that bananas have a similar odor than as a
Predator?
As a pheromone, as a bee defensive pheromone. So by smelling the banana, they thought that they were under attack.
Wow.
So they came to get me before I could get them.
That is
My wife says the same thing.
hilarious. Okay, so anyway, we were trying to find out about this moisture content,
Yes.
actually, of these of
Sorry.
this honey. So you were saying, Doug P., Dr. Doug, that
Is that an order?
That the light one, the light one, which is sort of a little bit florally and literally light and lighter in color, is sweeter because it has a higher.
I think
This one has less. The dark one has less moisture in it.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Higher
sweeter.
moisture. Okay. The dark
Less-
one has less moisture, and so then,
But also the different source of the nectar.
but it can only be at like 16%, or
It can. There can be a range. It has to be below 18% moisture, or it's likely to ferment in storage.
Okay. So, what happens to honey when it ferments? It'll
Well,
bubble. What happens?
Right. It'll bubble like
Oil in trouble.
Yeah. but
All right.
but if you really were manipulating it properly, you would make wine, or you could make honey beer or whatever. So you would add
What's the term you were using?
mead, MEAD.
And does that come from England or?
Yeah. So
whatever?
if you were at night at the round table, you could be sitting
No,
around
I
drinking
think-
mead. Have you never watched a movie?
But it's
Period
like
piece?
thick.
I think no. I think that's what Jesus was drinking at the Last Supper was mead. It was like the first wine.
Oh.
Yeah,
Some of the
because-
earliest
Probably
wines.
very, very sweet. Then would it?
Very sweet. It can be carbonated like champagne. When we make our mead, we're going to do it with champagne yeast. Actually,
Can you mix things like maple syrup with honey and create something?
you could probably ferment that. With mead, you can also add a lot of different. You can create different flavors depending on the herbs that you would want to add. You could do citrus. You could do rosemary. You could do a thyme. You could use. You could have fruit-flavored wines also.
And you could mix honey and maple syrup. You mean you just stir them up in a bowl and drizzle it over your cereal?
does it create something that's
Right. Is there? But I've never heard of a maple syrup wine.
This could be a new product.
Maple syrup wine. There
Well,
you
it's
go.
funny because when I traveled in
Sounds
Asia, they sold a honey that was even lighter than this. And I think even when I came back, I told you that, wow, this was just out in the countryside. And I thought, wow, we could bring this as a syrup. It was honey, pure honey, but it was so dilute-like. It was tasty as can be. It could become a substitute for maple syrup on the table. I don't know.
Well,
But honey can now. I mean, a lot of people will drizzle honey.
Right, I'll
just
use-
use as their sweetener.
Oh, I thought you were just
for-
talking simple syllables. Honey, and now. But well, let me ask you: how long does a queen bee live? Does she get replaced by someone
Younger?
younger,
Firmer?
prettier? Is she,
Of
can she
course.
be a trophy bee?
Of course. Bees. The queen bee is often replaced because she's just not productive enough anymore. She's not making enough.
Who makes that decision?
The beekeeper. She's not making enough babies. Maybe she's got bad blood and she's making bees that are kind of angry and nasty to deal with. So
Really?
you'll want to it's called requeening. So you may want to
So
smush.
you do it, but what happens in the wild?
Requeen. Okay, I'm using that.
Yeah, requeen.
What happens in the wild is that
I'm ready to requeen my wife. Is that all right?
You just say requeen.
Requeen.
You don't have to say it twice. You're just
okay.
ready to requeen.
it's
Okay.
possible that the hive gets too big for the situation it's in. That queen will leave with a certain percentage of the hive. The workers or the drone, they will make a new queen, and that hive, there'll be two queens then.
So that new queen's going to be related to the old queen genetically.
She will be.
Okay, cool. Now I have to ask you
But
about.
but they'll be okay. I mean, they would accept having two queens. It doesn't.
No, they only
They're
want
separate.
one. So if there's two queens in a hive, typically what happens is that the workers will actually surround that queen and suffocate her. Whatever is
Nice.
the weaker one.
Weaker.
Nice.
So it's not necessarily the first or
Right.
second, just the
Only
weaker one.
only the strong survive.
Right.
You know what? If the
Survival of
woman
the
don't
fittest.
do a job, she got to be gone.
Okay.
Okay, on that note, so tell me about the Africanized bees, because this was such a big shtick for a couple of years, and I have to tell you a story. I lived in Africa, in Kenya, in a wood building that had, just like you said, between the inner wall and the outer wall was a massive hive that was rupturing out to the outside. And this is when I had just heard about how mean Africanized bees could be, and I had to go down and pass this thing every single day, twice a day.
Did you ever get stung?
No.
Africanized is what?
It's just
Bees from
it's-
Africa.
It's a different strain of bees that lives in warmer climates than us. There are some Africanized hives, I think, in Texas and Florida, and
You don't think they'll make it all the way up? Because
Well, but
Not
okay,
yet.
so Africanized is just a term that means when a bee is exposed and
originated
grows-
in Africa, studies were being done with these different bee types in South America someplace, and there
They
was a
got loose.
major escape. And they were so aggressive, they overwhelmed some of the normal populations.
but they also have hardiness that our bees don't. The European bees, so
okay.
they're less susceptible to the attack by the varroa mite and foul brood, and
They're kind of like the Hardy Boys.
yeah, they're hardy.
I remember this. I remember all that publicity about this threat of these bees coming across the border, and they were going to be so dangerous. But again, Africanized
There's
suggests that that's just a term that happens. It's not that you're necessarily from Africa.
No, these are
Yeah,
bees
yeah.
that
These
were
are
originated in
necessarily from
Africa,
Africa.
and we call them Africanized just because if they
a
do, I don't know
certain
if they
percentage
mix.
of their genetics relate
Continue.
back to
Right,
Africa.
and it has to do with
Okay.
their aggression, is what
Okay.
people mostly note.
And so what happened?
Well, they're still migrating up. I mean, unless Trump gets the wall up in time, we're going to have Africanized bees crossing. Anyway,
Well, luckily, they need a certain amount of heat and mild winters to survive, and they just don't survive here.
Oh, good.
So, but with climate change, we may end up with Africanized bees here. Who knows?
well, we got armadillos.
Or you
We do.
survive
So,
the
anyway,
hurricanes.
yeah, no, this is really neat. We were going to talk. I don't know if we're going to have time, but maybe next time we'll bring you back and talk more about the other side of it, the pest-related insects that impose on our plants and on our animals too, because that's a whole other realm of interest.
And then you guys can draw a picture of it.
yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
we can draw.
Oh,
At
so
least I know Marcy
really
can
quick,
draw
what are
really
what
well.
are some of the other opportunities for kinds of art?
Well, we're starting actually a drawing class, and we're also talking about starting kind of a structural art thing
Right. We'll have a hand building class
instead of
And,
a wheel.
And one of the
Through
things,
building hands.
But no, instead of the wheel, which is a way to spin and
Yeah.
develop this clay, this is where you actually build the structure by hand.
without the wheel. So
But with clay.
Real quickly, we're going to break for just our final segment. Then when we come back, I want you to give access information to our listening community so we can get people coming to visit. So Dr. Doug Pernikoff of Dr. Doug's All Things Animal radio show, along with Cindy Vickers, my wonderful co-host, and our great friend Doug Gilberg of the Wildwood Green Arts. We'll be back in just a moment.
It's time living well.
We're back for our final recap segment of Dr. Doug's All Things Animal radio show. And Cindy and I have had a great time visiting with Doug Gilberg, who is the executive director and founder of the Wildwood Green Arts. Doug, can you tell us how people can reach you? What's the website, or how do we do this?
Well, we have a great website. It's wildwoodgreenarts.com or wgreenarts.com. And on it, you'll get our history, you have our class schedules, and we hope to be making the site better all the time. There's a place, we are a 501c3, donations could be made there, and
We're just trying to broaden the community. We want people to know that it's available. And
right, we are a community arts education center, and as we were just in front of the Wildwood City Council, we are the face of art in the city of Wildwood. There is nobody else that really is out there doing what we're doing.
that's good. And I'm excited because I can see it growing leaps and bounds.
Our classes, our ceramics classes are full to capacity right now, and this is actually, what is the date today?
September
6th?
7th.
Okay,
Is it 7th already?
September 8th will be open 1 year. And
Wow.
we've grown it slowly and organically, and every session we have more and more numbers, and people return again and again. And
Do you have to be able to speak English?
you don't. We
Okay,
actually, we have a Brazilian woman in class this year, this session, who doesn't speak much English, and we have a French woman.
Well, we also had, was it a blind person that took a class? That David, we had one of our instructors showing her how to do the wheel. I think it was.
Well, we had a person who was missing one of her arms. And
That's what it was. Yeah,
and
yeah.
she
Oh my
was
God, close.
she was amazingly gifted and a great artist, and the fact that she was missing, I think, her left hand didn't really stop her at all,
Yeah, yeah.
and learned to center with one hand and throw and do all the things everybody else did.
What I like about this ceramics art is it's a combination, total creativity. Everything, it's very forgivable. The science is very forgiving. And then you get to be a painter, too, and a designer, because there's so many elements to what you do to that clay. And it's a long process, so you commit a lot of time to a piece going from A to B to C. And it's very frustrating when your
it's
friends destroy your pieces, but
Such a pain. Clay is very strategic.
yes.
You have to, anticipate 10 moves ahead of you.
So I hope everybody gets a chance to visit. Now, Cindy, did you say you had an event or something you could share with us?
On September 23rd, something that's called Strut Your Mutt. This is at Tower Grove Park, which I think is absolutely one of the most beautiful parks in St. Louis. And I ran into it a year or two ago, and there's just a whole bunch of people there with their dogs. It's from 8 to 12, and it's $15 to $20 for admission, and they encourage you to use it as a fundraising effort, and they raised a lot of money last year and gave it out to a variety of different places that we're supporting. Then on October 1st is Canine Carnival. That's APA's big shindig of the year from 11 to 3 in Tillis Park on Litzinger Road, and that's tickets $5 to $15. One ticket per dog. So if you have 2 dogs, that's 2 tickets. Humans are free, and they have everything. Music,
Is that a
food.
rescue opportunity where you can adopt?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and there's also telling you everything about the APA, which is
okay.
the one right there
gotcha.
in Brentwood. Those are the 2 big ones. And then also at the end of the year, there's several dog splashes in Heman Park and Maplewood.
We'll bring those up probably as they get closer.
In Sunset Hills. Well, it's all today.
Oh,
All today.
Oh, wow.
The end of the year dog splash.
Well, we really have enjoyed the show. Remember, if you need some training support, you can contact Cindy Vickers at 636-530-1808. Same number for my clinic. And if you need any help with us in any way, give us a call. And don't forget to look up the Wildwood Green Arts and get involved. Thank you very much.